Welcome to my channel. I'm Scott, and in this video we're going to talk about ERC, Employee Retention Credit. Small businesses are not applying for the credit because they think it's complex. Although when you break it down, it's actually pretty easy. I'm making this video because there's so many slimy companies trying to take advantage of small businesses. These dirty companies are contacting thousands of people, thousands of businesses. In the email, they say they're going to do all the work to file their ERC forms. And they're not going to take any money up front. They'll only take 20% or maybe up to 30% of what that company receives. The average company gets $80,000 back from the government. It's an actual check from the government. I got $120,000 for my business. So if I gave 20% to another company for doing very little work, that would be $24,000 out of my pocket. And some companies are taking 30%. That would have been $36,000 for me. And the money you get from the government is counted as taxable income, so you have to pay taxes on that. So if you're paying somebody 30% and then the government 30%, you're getting less than half the money. I'm going to show you how you can keep most of the money for yourself. It usually takes me about an hour or less to file the ERC forms for friends. I'm going to show you the process I did for my business and my friends' businesses. And we all got lots of money back from the government, money we deserved. The only way you could get money back is if you had a business that paid employees in 2020 and 2021. I'm going to show you how to file the first quarter 2021 forms. You have to do each quarter separately. This is my friend's 941 for the first quarter of 2021. All you need is one number. Look at line 5A, taxable Social Security wages, and take that number. That's 564624. This Excel file I created myself to make it easier to file these forms. So I just type in the dollar amount, 5646.24. And then all the math is complete. You need to take 6.2% of that number. 6.2% of 5646.24 is 350.07. And you cannot claim more than $10,000 per employee per quarter. That's for 2021. I'll talk more about 2020 and all the finer details after I show you this simple process. He had 4 employees, but he couldn't have paid any of them over $10,000 because his total wages paid was $56.46. So I'm going to take that $56.46.24 and multiply it by 70%. You multiply it by 70% only in 2021. In 2020, it's by 50%. We'll talk more about that later. So 70% of $56.46.24 is $39.52.37. If you have a restaurant with tips, or if you pay medical insurance, it's going to be different. But this is more for plain vanilla business, like 90% of the businesses out there. Now you have all the numbers to input on the 941X form. The only way to file the ERC credit is on form 941X. I'll put a link for that in the description. Let me show you how you fill out the 941X form. A lot of the information is on your 941 form. Your EIN number, you can get that from your 941 form. This is my friend's 941. I blacked out the EIN, but it would be right here in case you forget it. All EINs are 9 digits. Below that, you put the name of your company. That's also on your 941 form. Copy it exactly. Below that is a trade name. For instance, my business was Mill Valley Math LLC, but my trade name was Mathnasium of Mill Valley. But your business might not have a trade name. If you don't have a trade name, just skip it. Leave that blank. You put your address. I just made up an address. And make sure you check off 941 because we're amending the 941 form. And make sure you check off the quarter you're doing. For my business and all my friends' businesses, I had to file 6 separate 941Xs. 3 for 2020, 3 for 2021. So make sure you check off the correct quarter you're doing. We're doing the first quarter of 2021. And you could put the date you're sending in the form. On part 1, you have to check 1 or 2. Make sure you check off 2, you're claiming money. And in part 2, check off 3. So make sure you check off D in part 5. And then on the top of each page, make sure your name, not your trade name, your company name. I would just copy the name right here. So on the top of every page, make sure your name is identical to what it is in the first page. Same thing with your EIN. Make sure it's correct and make sure it matches the first page. Make sure the quarter and year are correct, also on the top of each page. This is the third page. It also has the name, EIN, and quarter and year. The fourth page, the same thing. Then the fifth and final page, same thing. You put your name, your EIN, the quarter and year. You don't check off anything in 41 and 42. And then the bottom of the fifth page, make sure you print your name, your title, your phone number, who prepared the form. If it was you, you put your name. You could put your company's name if you filled out your own form, your address, your phone number, your zip code, your EIN. If you paid a company to do your 941X form, then they would fill this part in themselves. And at the very end, you have to sign it and date it, and the person who prepared it has to sign it and date it. You could ignore this last page, it's just instructions. So in number 43, don't put too much information, because if you put a lot of info, it may slow down the IRS. So put something really simple. Something like amending my 941 for ERC purposes. Let's go back to our handy Excel file. So in 18A on the 941X, we have to put in these numbers. This is 18A, it's on the second page of the form. So we're gonna put 350.07 in column 1. Column 1 is total corrected amount for all employees. Column 2 is amount originally reported. So if you look on your 941 form, line 11C, you'll see 0 in that field. Here's my friend's 941 11C, you'll see 0 here. What we're doing, we're amending this number. Column 3 is just the difference between those two numbers. So the 350.07 minus 0, which is 350.07. Column 4 is a tax correction. The tax correction is always the opposite of column 3. So you want to put a negative here. If you put a positive, that means you would owe the government $350.07. But you can see this is all on my Excel file already. It's very handy. 350.07, 0, 350.07, negative 350.07. Next is line item 23. We have to put negative 350.07. 23 is just the sum of lines 7 through 22. In rows 7 through 22, everything is blank except for row 18A. Don't fill in anything in the other rows, because if it doesn't need to be changed, there's no reason to put a dollar amount, because it's just going to take more time for the IRS to complete your form. So just leave it blank. They prefer it that way. The next part is line 26A. We're going to put 360230, 0, 360230, and then negative 360230. 26A, refundable portion of employee retention credit. You see column 2 is 0 because on form 941, what we originally filed with the IRS, that was 0. It's on line 13D, I'll show you. 13D, refundable portion of employee retention credit, 0. Make sure you don't put any dollar signs or commas. The IRS does not like that. The next line is 27. We have to sum up line 23 and 26A. Line 27 is the sum of lines 23 through 26C. So there's only two things between 23 and 26C. It's the two numbers we input. So we have to sum that up, which is 3952.37. That's the check amount the government will send you. Now we have to complete lines 30 and 31. Line 30 is the wages we use to calculate the ERC. We use the entire 5646.24 minus 0, because that's what we originally had on line 21 on form 941, and the difference is 5646.24. This is my friend's 941. You see line 21, it was 0. When we filed the 941X form, this form right here, it will change that 0 to 5646.24. Make sure you double check everything. Make sure you put everything on the right line. Make sure the dollar amounts are exact, including the cents. Double check the company name on each page, the EIN number. Make sure you're doing the correct quarter. And make sure you sign it and date it. And make sure the person preparing it signs it and dates it. Even if that's you, you have to sign it twice. This is the most simplified version of filing the 941X. There might be some slight differences with your company, but this will work for 90% of the companies out there. If you go onto the IRS website and look for instructions for filling out the 941X form, they will refer you to this worksheet. But it is best if you read as much of the instructions as you can, although it can be a little confusing, which is why there's a lot of snakes out there trying to get people's money. For the 941X form I just did, and also for my business, the result for my Excel file will give you the same exact result if you filled out this form. But you should fill out this form just to get used to it, just to make sure there's no differences between my Excel file and this form. You would only use Worksheet 2 if you're doing the second quarter of 2020, the third quarter of 2020, the fourth quarter of 2020, the first quarter of 2021, and the second quarter of 2021. So those 5 quarters. You would use Worksheet 4 if you're doing the third quarter of 2021. So we just did the first quarter of 2021. If you want to claim the credit for ERC, you would put 0 for 1A. That doesn't apply. For 1B, you would enter the amount of Social Security wages. Form 941, Part 1, Line 5A. That's a number we used earlier in my Excel file. So you would write 5646.24. I don't use this form, but I know this form inside and out now. But if you're going to file your own 941X, you should make sure you understand this form as well. So if you owned a restaurant, 1C may apply. This is for tips. And you can find that on your 941 form, Part 1, Line 5B. For my friend's business and my business, it was 0. Then you would add 1B and 1C. So 1B, you would have 5646.24. 1C would be 0. So 1D would be 5646.24. If you want to put commas on this form, if you want to put X marks or check marks, whatever you want. But make sure you don't send this to the IRS. They even say keep for your records. Now for line 1E, you would multiply 1D, which is 5646.24, times 6.2%. So 5646.24, 6.2%. So 1E will be 350.07. Now 1F, you could put 0 for 1F, 1G, and 1H. That doesn't apply. 1I would be the sum of 1E, 1F, 1G, and 1H. Only 1E has a number in it, so 1I, you will put 350.07. 1J, you will put 0. 1K, you will put 0. 1L, you will put 0. 1M, you will put 0. For line 1N, it will be 1I minus 1M. So 1N would be 350.07. Now line 2A are the qualified wages you used. Remember, we used our total wages, 5646.24, because no employee was over $10,000. I'll show you in a little bit what you would do if you had employees over $10,000. So 2A, 5646.24. 2B will be 0 unless you had health insurance. But I'm assuming you do not have health insurance. So we'll put 0. 2C will be 0. 2D will be 0. Remember, this is for my friend's company who does not have health insurance. Now for 2F, you have to take 70% of 2A. That's only in 2021. In 2020, it will be 50% of 2A. So 70% of 5646.24 is 3952.37. So 2F, 3952.37. So for line 2G, we have to enter what we put in line 1N, which was 350.07. So 2G. If I was you, I would print out this form and actually write on it. It would be a lot easier. But for the video, I'm just doing it like this. 2H would be 0. You could skip that for ERC. So for line 2I, it's 2G minus 2H. So 2I is 350.07. So for 2J, we have to enter the smaller of line 2F and 2I. 2F is 3952, 2I is 350, the smaller is 350. So 2J is 350.07. 2K is 2F minus 2J. So 3952.37, 350. So the difference is 3602.30. So 2K, 02.30. So you can see it matches my Excel file because all the formulas are built in. You just have to input one number, the 5646.24. But if you use this form, it does tell you form 941X, line 30, column 1. So you have to input 5646.24 on form 941X, line 30, column 1, which we did. You can see that right here, 5646.24. And then for line 2J, it says enter this amount on 941X, line 18A, column 1. So 350.07, line 18A. So you can see we did that correctly. And then 2K, it says enter this amount on 941X, line 26A, column 1. So 360230, 26A, 360230. The reason we put 0 in the second column is because that's the amount that was originally reported on our 941. And then we just have to do the math, the difference between those two numbers, and you always do the opposite in column 4. And they don't mention line 23 on that worksheet we were just looking at. Like, you don't see line 23 anywhere here. So how do we get this negative 350.07 for line 23? Well, it's just the instructions on this form 941X. It says combine the amounts on lines 7 through 22. And the same thing with line 27. That's not mentioned on worksheet 2, but it just says combine the amounts on lines 23 through 26C. If you're filing the 941X for the third quarter of 2021, then you would use worksheet 4 and make sure you multiply your wages by 1.45%. Remember, in worksheet 2, you multiply by 6.2%. Worksheet 2 is for the second, third, and fourth quarter of 2020, and also the first and second quarter of 2021. Worksheet 4 is only for the third quarter of 2021. So everything else is pretty much identical, except you have to multiply by 1.45%. You could file a 941X for the fourth quarter of 2021 only if you started your business on or after February 15th, 2020. They mention it right here. You must be a recovery startup business to claim the employee retention credit for qualified wages paid after 9/30/2021 and before 1/1/2022. So just for the fourth quarter of 2021, you have to be a recovery startup business. And they define a recovery startup business as a business that started after or on 2/15/2020. That's why I said for my process, it would work for over 90% of businesses out there, but there could be some nuances, so you want to just make sure. That's why everybody says hire a tax professional. And you can only claim these credits if you have employees. If it's just you that works at the company, you can't claim it. Even if you're on payroll, say you have 5 employees and you're one of the employees and you own 100% of the business, you can claim their salaries but not yours. I think if you own below 50% of the company, then you could claim it, but if you own above 50%, you cannot claim it. So for each quarter you claim, you want to fill out this 941X and use the latest version. The latest 941X is April 2022. They revise this form a lot. They revise it almost every year. And there's 6 pages, but ignore the last page. Only print out the first 5 pages and make sure you staple it. Just for a quick recap of some of the items we discussed. You always use 5A, your taxable Social Security wages. And that's right from Form 941. You could just log on to your payroll company and download Form 941. If you can't find it, just contact your payroll company. And you always want to multiply it by 6.2% unless it's the third quarter of 2021. Then it's 1.45%. And probably the most common nuance is the max per employee. One thing to keep in mind is you can only claim $10,000 per employee for 2020, meaning the sum of all 3 quarters of 2020, the second, third, and fourth quarter of 2020. So let me give you an example. Say in the second quarter of 2020, you have 2 employees, A. Smith and J. Jones. This is their salary, $2,500 and $4,000. Total payroll is $6,500. So you put the $6,500 in here, and you could claim the entire amount. So for 2020, you could claim 50% of qualified wages. Qualified wages are $6,500. So 50% of that is $3,250. That would be your refund. That would be the check amount the IRS would send you for the second quarter of 2020. And this is how you break it down on your Form 941X. Say in the third quarter of 2020, your payroll is $7,000. So up to this point, you paid A. Smith $5,500, $3,000 plus $2,500. You paid J. Jones $8,000, $4,000 plus $4,000. So both are under the $10,000 for all of 2020. So your qualified income for the third quarter of 2020 is $7,000. You would receive a check of $3,500 from the IRS. Now the fourth quarter of 2020, you can't claim the entire $8,000. You could only claim half of J. Jones's $4,000. Because if you claim the entire $4,000 of J. Jones for the fourth quarter of 2020, that means you claim $12,000 for this employee, which is over the $10,000 limit. So you have to knock it down $2,000. The 4Q 2020 qualified income is $6,000, not $8,000. You have to knock off $2,000. So now you can take 50% of $6,000, which is $3,000. So the IRS would send you a check of $3,000 for the fourth quarter of 2020. And this is how you would fill it out on your 941X form. You will put $6,000 in Section 30. Here's a 941X. Section 30 is a qualified wages for the employment retention credit. You cannot qualify for the entire $8,000 for that quarter because one employee is over $10,000. That's why you should really read Worksheet 2. This is in the IRS instructions for filling out the 941X. It says, caution, for qualified wages paid before 1/1/2021, the cumulative total for all quarters of 2020 that can be claimed cannot exceed $10,000 per employee. And on the top, it says this is only good for March 12th, 2020 through July 1st, 2021. So it's only applicable for the second, third, and fourth quarter of 2020. So you cannot claim more than $10,000 per employee for the sum of those 3 quarters. And then it says, for qualified wages after December 31st, 2020, so the first 3 quarters of 2021, you cannot exceed $10,000 per employee each quarter. Once you understand it, it's not that confusing, but unless someone shows you this, it can leave a lot of room for interpretation, which is why people pay these scam artists 20 to 30% to file their 941X forms. Let's say you were doing the second quarter of 2021, and remember, for each quarter in 2021, the first, second, and third, it's $10,000 per employee max. Each quarter is separate. So say you had 2 employees. A. Smith received $5,000 in the second quarter. J. Jones received $14,000 in the second quarter. So we put $19,000 in this cell, but in order to calculate your 70%, you can't do it for the entire $19,000. Because J. Jones got paid $4,000 more than $10,000. So you would knock it down to $15,000. So 70% of $15,000 is $10,500. That's how much money you can receive from the government. You can't get 70% of the $19,000. In the 941 instructions, it shows you where to send these forms. But this is exactly what it shows you. This is a screenshot from the instructions from 941X. So if you live in California like me, this is the address you would send it to. If you live in Connecticut, you would send it to the Ohio address. You don't have that much more time to file your 941X for second quarter of 2020. The due date is by 7/31 of this year. For third quarter, it's by 10/31. For fourth quarter, it's by 1/31 of next year. You do have a lot of time to file your 2021 forms. But even if you file it today, it could take up to 9 months to get your check. So make sure you don't get hosed by these companies trying to scam you, taking most of your money. There are some companies that are literally trying to scam you. They're not even going to do your filing. So just really watch out. And there's no need to even spend a few $100s on a YouTube course explaining this. Just watch this video again. If you have a question, leave a comment, please. Subscribe. Thanks for watching.